Whether you're growing a winter garden or not, protecting your soil now will greatly improve next year's production. Healthy soil means healthy plants, which means higher production. We all want that, right? Soil should be protected through the winter months, and this can be done in several different ways. And these ways are easy, very effective, and come springtime, you'll see the difference. Your soil will be loose, it'll have a higher, healthy microbial life, and you can just sit back during the winter and let nature take its course. So why would you want to spend time protecting your garden soil during the winter months? It's pretty darn important, so bear with me for just a second while I give you a little bit of soil knowledge. In most regions, the soil microbial activity starts to slow down during the winter months, basically going dormant. The colder it is, the less microbial activity you get. When the soil is protected from the winter elements, this allows for some microbial activity by insulating it. It also helps keep the moisture in that soil, which is also really important during the winter months for soil life. Dry soil can stress the good bacteria, the good fungi, and other soil organisms that live in that soil. And we absolutely need these to grow a good garden. Without them, our soil isn't healthy. The plants can't uptake nutrients and water. They're more susceptible to pests and diseases. These lovely microscopic creatures break down all that good organic matter like your compost, your mulches, and your organic fertilizers and make available nutrients for your plants so that they can survive. And how do we protect that soil and keep it alive through the winter months so that we can get a huge jump start in growing in the spring? First off, it's fall, and we generally have lots of leaves. Leaves are nature's way of blanketing that soil beneath us, protecting it from the winter elements. We can learn a lot from nature. Out of all the mulches that I use during the fall and winter months, leaves are absolutely my favorite. I'll use leaves around and amongst plants that are already existing in the garden. This helps insulate that soil, keeping it from deep freezes, which helps those plants grow better and produce through the winter months. When we use leaves amongst our plants that are in the garden, we want to make sure that they're shredded, because if they're not shredded and they're in whole form and we put a thick layer of them, they can mat and not allow airflow or water to penetrate, creating an anaerobic situation, which is great if you want it to suppress stubborn weeds. But we don't want to suppress our vegetables. I'll apply a couple of inches around the plants, but I don't pile it too high right up against the stem because that can cause some rot on the plants. If I have any areas in my garden that I'm not going to be planting anything and the soil's going to be bare, then I need to cover it. And I love to cover it with a thick layer of those shredded leaves once again. And it'll be about 6 inches thick. This insulates that soil, and that really encourages that microbial life even through the winter months. Worms absolutely love leaves. Within a week after applying leaves, you can pull back those leaves and you'll see tons of worms working their way through those leaves. As they work their way to the surface, they're tunneling, loosening that soil, breaking down those leaves, and depositing their castings. And you didn't even have to buy castings. I got all of my garlic planted in October and it's already up about 4 to 6 inches tall. When I plant my garlic, I'll apply about 1/2 inch thick of mulch and no more. If I go too thick, then that can actually suppress the growth of the garlic and we don't want that. But once it's up to that 4 to 6 inches, then at that time I can apply about a 2-inch thick layer of shredded leaves. The layer of leaves will not only help protect that garlic from deep freezes, but it feeds those microbes and improves the tilth of the soil for next spring. And you can apply this to your winter onions and shallots the same way. Compost is also excellent to feed the microbes while it improves the soil's tilth and texture for next spring's garden. If you don't have any leaves, you can apply compost around your fall and winter vegetable crops. You would do it just the same as you would leaves, just not as thick. For bare soil, you can apply 2 to 4 inches thick of compost, and even more is just fine. If you make your own compost and you have some that's not completely finished, that's just fine to apply to the bare soil. You just don't want to apply it around your vegetable plants because it could be too hot and it could burn the plants. But it's perfect and will finish breaking down through the winter months applied to bare soil. It's extremely beneficial, if at all possible, to put down a layer of compost, then cover that with leaves. You're getting all the great benefits from that compost that has all of that good bacteria and the fungi from all of that carbonaceous compounds that's found in those leaves. If you've got crops like carrots, turnips, parsnips, and winter radishes that are going to stay in the ground through the winter months, by mulching them with straw or leaves not only feeds that soil life, but it insulates that soil, and it makes it easier for you to be able to pull those root crops up during the dead of the winter. I won't mulch these crops until we've had a freeze that knocks back that top growth. And I'll go ahead and leave that top growth right in place and mulch over the top of that. This just adds an extra layer of insulation. Let's talk raw manure. Raw manure is rich in nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, minerals, and many other trace elements. But the problem with it is it's hot and it can burn your plants. It's something that should never be applied to your vegetable garden soil in the springtime and then planted right away after applying it. Raw manure should either be composted first or added to your garden soil at least 3 months before planting. This time allows it to break down so that it's no longer hot and making it safe to be able to plant your vegetables in. Fall is the perfect opportunity to apply your raw manure after the summer crops have been pulled out or cut down. We have goats and chickens, and they poop a lot, so that's a lot of manure. Our goat manure has a lot of hay stubble, and the chicken bedding is wood chips. All of this just provides more organic matter that's perfect to apply during the fall time. Raw manure can be worked into the soil or just laid right over the top. It can be worked into the soil through tillage or even creating a trench, dumping that raw manure in that trench and then covering it with soil. This breaks down a lot faster because it has contact with that soil and all those microbes. If you're no-till, and I mostly am, you can apply several inches of that raw manure right over the surface of that soil. I like to apply either compost or shredded leaves over the top of that as well. And obviously, you don't want to be applying this raw manure around plants that are already growing. You want to be applying it just to your bare soil. This thick layer of mulch over the winter time has broke down. It's become rich, dark brown, fertile. The soil is loose, and it's ready for spring planting. The worms are abundant and active. The soil is alive and ready to feed your plants for an abundant harvest with little spring soil prep. During the winter months, soil can generally be pretty wet, and you don't want to work your soil during that time because working wet soil can really create hard, compacted soil. I live in an area that doesn't receive much moisture, so I have to supplement water for my garden. And I really like to water that mulch and the compost and those leaves. That just helps with that breakdown process through the winter months. Remember, dry soils that crack, don't have as much microbial life as moist soils do. But we don't want soggy soils either. Winter hardy cover crops can be sown in the fall and as late as November in zones 6 through 9. These crops would be winter wheat, winter rye, hairy vetch, and some clovers. These crops are very hardy and they'll germinate in temperatures from the low to mid 40s. And that's daytime temperatures. Something to think about in zone 7 and up is to grow cilantro as a cover crop. While it's not a typical cover crop to grow, its benefits are well beyond the soil. Cilantro is great to eat, and it loves that cool weather, and it'll grow all winter in my zone 8. If our temperatures are going to be down into the 20 degrees for several weeks at a time, then I'll go ahead and cover with a frost blanket to protect it. But mature plants of cilantro can survive brief dips down to 10 degrees. Cilantro has deep tap roots, and that can really help break up compacted soils. If you grow more than you can eat, then you can chop and drop, providing more great organic matter for your soil. In the springtime, when temperatures start to warm, the cilantro will go to seed, and this provides food for beneficial insects. And then when the seed forms, it's known as coriander. Save some of that for kitchen use, but also save some of that seed for next year's cover crop planting. Cover crops will protect your soil from winter erosion, as well as help hold moisture in. At the end of your cover crop's life cycle, they can be sheeted, basically laid over with some compost, leaves, or some other type of organic matter laid over the top of that so that they can continue to break down and feed that soil. Keeping live plants growing in your garden or layering mulches over the top of the soil will protect that soil through the winter months, making healthier soil in the springtime. If the soil is not being fed through plant life, their roots, leaf drop, mulches, or compost, the soil will feed on itself until it exhausts itself. Bare and dry soil can lead to the breakdown of soil structure and the microbial community. So if you don't want to plant a garden, you need a break from gardening, don't let your soil be bare. Layer organic matter or plant cover crops to try to keep the soil moist so that when you do get back in the swing, the soil will be ready. The microbial life will be there, ready to take action. I think one of the worst things that you can do for your garden soil is let it rest for long periods of time without adding any organic matter. Let it dry up and wither away. It's living, it needs food, and it takes time to build good, healthy soil. We can all take a lesson from Mother Nature. The leaves drop and they replenish the soil. I want to thank Karfo for sponsoring this video. Karfo is a smart kitchen waste composter that can be used indoors. It's free of odors and completes composting process in as little as 2.5 hours with little effort. Kitchen scraps like eggshells, dairy meats, soft fish bones, vegetable scraps will turn into a nutrient-rich soil amendment without tossing it in the trash. Just place your kitchen waste into the nonstick bucket, line up the notches, and push the first button for small batches and the second for full and wetter waste. To clean, you can put the bucket in the dishwasher or push the raindrop for thorough cleaning. It's perfect for small patio gardeners and the gardening enthusiast. The end product is not meant to be planted directly in, but rather added to your garden soil or a portion to garden soil. The process of breaking down food scraps in the recycler encourages the growth of good microbes when added to the garden soil. Although it's not a replacement for traditional compost, which contains fungi and different types of bacteria, but it is an excellent soil amendment and fertilizer. You can add it directly to the garden soil, working in the top couple of inches, or add it to potting soil at the ratio of no more than 20%. Or it can be used as a mulch in thin layers, feeding the plants and protecting the soil. Each batch will be different in nutrient levels, depending on what you ran through the recycler. Meat products or protein, which when added to the garden soil will be converted into nitrogen for your plants. And it's fun and easy to use. If you want more information about the Karfo Kitchen Waste Recycler, then check out the link in the description below.